Welcome to Musings and Modalities. I'm your host, Tristen Stawicki. Think of me as your pragmatic shaman bestie. Join in with other high-vibe, lovely people as I unravel spiritual ideas to help create change and growth in your life. I cover a variety of spiritual topics, sharing knowledge to meet you wherever you are in your journey. As a shaman, astrologer, and human design reader, I help you understand how to make informed decisions and incorporate different modalities using discernment and your own intuition. Today, you will gain powerful shamanic healing tools you can use to incorporate spiritual practices in non-traditional ways. Whether you're just beginning or need a knowledgeable best friend with the next phase of your journey, I'm here to help. Stay tuned. Musings and Modalities starts now. Hi, everyone, and welcome to Musings and Modalities. I'm Tristen Stawicki, your pragmatic shaman bestie, and I am so excited for today's episode, Walking the Tightrope, Balancing Your Creative Gifts and Analytical Talents. And we have our very special guest, Jesica Henderson. Jesica has an incredible show, The Possibility Perspective, and is such a wonderful person. She is really a huge part of the driving force behind the programming on the Transformation Network and is a next level executive producer for Transformation Talk Radio and the incredible Dr. Pat show. She does this amazing job of finding and highlighting and nurturing the lovely hosts on the network. And what I love about her is one of her superpowers is really creating a supportive and safe environment for other creators, which is so, so important. However, she has many gifts, right? And so really the inspiration for today's show is being able to talk through and highlight when someone is multifaceted, which most of us are, how we work with that. So Jesica, thank you so much for being here.
Yay. Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited.
Me too. In my conversations with clients, I often hear them expressing, that they aren't creative or they're, not good at being organized. And I really see this pattern of folks really not looking holistically at their skills and at their gifts. And, in the intro, I highlighted, your current titles and projects. But you got this amazing start as an audio engineer. So I'd love to hear a bit more about kind of the role of an audio engineer for those that are unfamiliar and how, your journeys kind of helped you balance your ability to hold the beautiful vision that your birth chart supports, your beautiful Pisces North Node, and those, really amazing grounding gifts from Virgo of being able to be of service.
Yeah, it's fascinating. It's one of those things I've reflected on a lot because I ended up here for a reason.
Mm.
And it does bring in a balance of both this engineering, which I think the engineering part as an analytical technical role is understanding signal flow and ohms and amps and cable connections and signal going from one place to another. And so that's where the engineering part training is in the a little bit of the electrical, but then really technical, very detailed, very analytical, which I love. I was eating that stuff up. And then at the same time, and so then I learned that in the capacity of music, basically.
Mm.
Then those skills are very transferable to radio and doing audio in this capacity where it was connecting voices, making sure the sound is right, getting it to the place it needs to go. So all of that was still very analytical. But then at the same time, I found myself in an environment that required a different level of softness and support and understanding because of the nature of the work that we do with hosts. And so it was an interesting role to find myself in that I probably couldn't have told you I would have planned it this way. But being able to use both of those skill sets in, yes, I'm very technical, I can get things done, but also hold space and have these beautiful, rich conversations with people.
Right. And just wanted to highlight a little bit is, I know, especially in my technical day-to-day role that I have as a product manager, when I start to talk about some of my projects, people tend to zone out a little bit. And so what I want to highlight is why you were talking about being an audio engineer and really sharing is the quality piece, just to ground it for people, right? That's why it matters, is because if our audio, while we were sharing this beautiful message, you can't hear it, it doesn't resonate, it doesn't feel truthful, well, then there's no point. And so it was a beautiful way to kind of tie that up, I feel, because that's why it's important, is it's not just the message, it's how it's delivered. And that's the analytical piece, which is so impactful and so important.
Hmm. For sure. For sure.
No, that's great. And, as I highlighted a little bit, so often people put labels on themselves and they really find themselves in two buckets. And the first bucket is, oh, I'm creative. And they maybe lean into some of the stereotypes of being a little flighty or things like that, or they act like, oh, I'm talent, so it doesn't it doesn't matter the other stuff, right? And it's like, no, 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 like that's the beauty. It's both. And on the flip side is that we often have those very analytical folks in our life, people that do our taxes and everything else, and we want them to be creative. We want them to find like incredible problems and solutioning. And so I wanted to talk with you about, as you look back on your journey, were there labels in that range that you really had to unlearn as you embrace this next level of yourself?
I'm still unlearning.
Yeah.
But yes, because I, and interestingly enough, growing up, I think I would have been labeled a creative because I was a musician and I was
Mm-hmm.
just, I mean, that's how a lot of people knew me, as that little girl that played the fiddle. And so, and I was just kind of like a dreamer and, all
Yeah.
of those things. And then getting into this audio engineering role specifically, and even a lot of my day to day work now is very analytical. And I
Mm-hmm.
feel like the thing I'm currently unlearning or maybe remembering is that I am also highly creative, because I think I get labeled, and I label myself a lot as I'm super analytical. I think I've said that on my own podcast, like in self discovery so many times. It's like I have such an analytical brain and I do this and I do that. And it's true. But to your point, there is also a highly creative side of me and a very talented creative side of me that I'm trying to relearn.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think the height of creativity is, like, to pull back the curtain a little bit, is when you're on like a television studio, when you're watching a movie being made and all of the problem solving that's happening behind the scenes while the actors are doing their scene to make it flow seamlessly. Like, that to me is the height of creativity, because there's so much going on, just to make that vision a reality, which is so beautiful and impactful. So no, I always kind of put you in the very creative bucket. And so it was really cool to like dive into your background more, because I was just like, oh, what a beautiful way to see, what you the many facets of who you are, which is so, so cool.
Interesting to your point, because you're right. There is this analytical part of problem solving and a creative part of problem solving that happens on a day to day basis that maybe we just don't always recognize that both are happening. Because you can recognize, analyze a problem, and sometimes the solution has to be very creative.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm sure in your day to day, and I experienced it in mine too, you're just like, I actually need to take a walk, right? I need to get out of remove myself from a spreadsheet or whatever I'm working on, remove myself from a computer and like go experience nature or do something else. Do you find like you have to do something to ground you when you're shifting your brain from very analytical to creative?
I'm learning that it's a
Mm,
practice I'm putting into place more now, is this like reset recalibration,
mm,
where if I'm working on something like a spreadsheet or something that just takes a lot of detail, a lot of focus, and then I'm going to go right into having a conversation about somebody's banners and
right.
the
Yeah.
colors and the concept of it, or even just the show concept, or right, or visioning about a show. I have been trying to literally block buffer time into my calendar to recalibrate and be able to put myself in the right space. And I'm finding that is so helpful, because I really can just like it. And it's literally, I have to physically remove myself. So working from home, I literally walk out, stand in the backyard, take a deep breath, and then walk back in. And then I can be like, okay, now I'm ready for the next thing that uses a totally different side of my brain.
Absolutely. But you're just as invested in it. And I think that's the key that people like underestimate in themselves, is it's like when you actually zoom out of like your day-to-day life and the problems people have and what they're working through both professionally and personally, it's like we do this constantly and we just don't recognize it. And so putting in place good habits, which you have, which is incredible. I have a similar kind of process, that's really important to me. I've also started like my Monday, Wednesdays, Fridays, I try to have my creative stuff in the morning morning because I find I actually struggle to shift back and forth in the same day. And so whenever I'm able to like do the really deep work and have like several hours of deep work in a row, my brain feels better. And then I go like, okay, how will I feel accomplished? And then I go, let me do like more of the admin stuff or more of the things that I'm like can just knock out. And I have that like dopamine hit. I'm like, okay, I got stuff physically, tangibly done. I wasn't just dreaming all morning, but I think there's a million ways for people to figure out what works for them.
So true. And I think it's trial and error a little bit. I mean, you stumble and maybe get burned out a little bit at one point and you're like, "Ooh, well, that definitely didn't work for me." But to your point, I think there's a lot of us like this that like that to-do list, like crossing things off and that dopamine hit of like feeling like you were so productive is like the best feeling in the world.
Oh, that's awesome. No, it really, really is. And I also want to highlight, I feel like if we stay in one mode, if we stay in that I'm going to be at a computer and do something very tedious and very detail oriented, I don't find it replenishes me. And so I have to be really careful to be replenished on both sides. And I'm sure you feel the same.
That's so true. And I think we maybe misunderstand what some of these labels are too. And kind of back to that point of creativity. I think some people label themselves as not creative because they have a maybe skewed perspective and definition of what creative actually is. And that can mean different things for different people. And being able to find that in your own world, like creative doesn't mean you necessarily play music or draw or, but there is something probably in a day that could be labeled as creative that we just don't think about.
That's excellent, honestly, because like I consider creative the same as intuitive, like it's a skill that you build
Mm.
over a lifetime. That you like some of us may have more of a natural inclination to it, but it feels like some people have the misconception if you weren't like blessed by your kindergarten teacher as creative or like or you're like very orderly and structured and things like that. Like it feels like our initial teachers, of course, they were so important at the beginning of our lives, but if they skewed us one way or another, it had this lasting impact. And so I really want to help people have that permission slip to embrace both sides of, what skill they're trying to build. Because yeah, creative has so many definitions. I mean, I think of like nail art and how incredibly beautiful that is, and all of the new avenues of art we have that isn't as like traditional modern art or, on a painting. What people build in video games when you're able to build a whole world like that is so creative and so cool.
Incredibly. And I just want to plug you for a second because working with you and when I was doing understanding my nodes and how that intertwines, because I've been on this personal development journey, which is why I have the self-awareness to recognize, oh, there's this analytical, oh, there's this creative, and I can distinguish those and I'm building my skill sets in that. But it's because of work like what you do and helping understand yourself and how we're wired also takes away or kind of opens us up to redefining the labels we've put on ourselves, let's say. So thank you for doing that.
Oh, thank you. No, it is an honor, and that thank you so much for that like recognition because that means everything. I really appreciate it. And I know like personal development is so important to you and your story. And I want to make sure like listeners have really tangible ways that they can kind of take what we're talking about today and introduce it into their own life. So as you found yourself where your day-to-day is more process driven and systematic, are there any call outs of what you're doing outside of work to really replenish or to get that fulfillment?
I absolutely. So, exercise for
Mm,
me is super important, and doing it outside is super important because that just refuels me. Like, I get to just move freely and breathe fresh air and not just be because I think part of the day to day of like
mm.
sitting stationary and looking at a computer and doing all this work all day long is I need the antithesis to that. I
Yeah.
need freedom, flowing movement, fresh air. And then from a creative standpoint, I still play music. Like that is a part of, I wish I could say it was every day, but it's definitely something I'm trying to incorporate more of every day is just something also that's just feeds my soul for no other real purpose. Like even exercise is a purpose to like try to stay healthy and those things, but like music to me is just that freedom to
Mhm.
just let it be. Or even turning on music and dancing. I guess that goes into exercise, but
Oh.
those are the things that I like to do to just balance the scales a little bit of the real hard focus all day long.
Mhm. What I also love about kind of what you talked through is that you're using your approach to creativity through your lens, which is very natural to you, of your self node, which is that like routine and like like I'm gonna do this and it's tangible and like I'll do this hopefully every day, or you have those core days that you do it. And so I think where people have kind of put that label or put the, let's say, put the energy of their life into either creative or analytical, I love like feeding into that lens more and saying, well, okay, well, I'll use this. And, if I'm someone that is very pragmatic and grounded, that means I can donate like 15 minutes of time to like pursue something of a creative endeavor, right? It doesn't have to be these huge sweeping changes in your life. You're still you, but you can kind of open the door to these little like pathways that you can go down.
It's so true. Like I still like my creative time is still in a bit of a routine and it's
Yep.
structured and it
Yep.
has these things, but
Right.
that's what works for me.
Yeah.
And it lights me up and it fills me up and I feel good about it. So I'm like, okay, it works. I don't have to judge it. I don't have to try to change it. I can just go with what flow feels good. Cause I think that's kind of what I try to chase is like what really intuitively when I tune into myself, what do I need? What do I need? What feels good? What's going to keep me in a really great state? And
Mhm.
it's that.
Absolutely. And that also allows in that magic element, right? So when you're in that flow state, even when you are someone that has a very structured schedule, you have a lot of people that need your attention, a lot of moving parts, where are you finding time to just kind of receive from the universe? Is that something you're still working through?
I'm 1,000% working through that because there's this like knowing that I need to do that and I need to just take time and space, but I have this innate ability, like some like programming in me that's like, but you have to keep doing
Mhm.
instead of sitting back and breathing and just receiving ideas, receiving like whatever that is. I really have to work on that.
Mm. No, I get it. It's still something I'm working through too, because I find like I do really well one way or another, and I don't often have the balance. It's like I'm either in, um, for instance, I was in New York for a few days. I'm either in this like flow state where I'm meeting incredible people or doing this, and like I have all this receiving all at once. And then I'm back home and it's like, okay, structures, routine, working on business stuff, all of those things. And so, yeah, it's fascinating. The expansiveness, I think, on the day-to-day level is a great goal for us all to have. But it's also okay for us to try to find time where we're traveling or where we're, spending time with friends to really allow our brain to kind of just be in a different environment so we see things differently.
That's so true. Yeah, absolutely. And to that, I mean, I think I do the same thing where I have these moments. Like I had two friends come visit and I took a day
Mhm.
off work even. Whoa.
We
And
love, we love.
and we didn't really go anywhere, but I just hung out for 3 days with two of my friends and I
Mhm.
don't usually do that. And it was fun and we were just totally go with the flow. There was no plans, there was no schedule, there was no routine. And I like to joke, I'm like, I'll go with the flow, but what time does the flow start?
Incredible. Actually, that is a perfect joke. That is incredible.
However, though I really was like, I was in it, I was in the flow
Yeah.
and it felt good. And it's funny to me, then, yeah, like take that person, put her back in this desk in a work
Mhm.
day. And then it's like, if I'm trying to go with a flow, that's really uncomfortable. Then I'm like, okay, but what time
Right.
does it start and what time does it end? Because I've got other things on either side of the flow.
Exactly. No, completely relate to that. And I think many, many people do that are listening, right? Because it's just like, sometimes I'll laugh when I'll hear like other coaches make recommendations and I'm like, what kind of life are they living? You know what I mean? Because like there's just their life and my life is not the same. And so really what I want people to understand is like, even just those 5 minutes, those micro adjustments really add up. And it doesn't have to be sweeping changes. It's like, how do you just change that mindset, change that time, just like inch by inch, a couple percentage points, and then it's like all of this expansiveness really opens up, which is so cool.
It's so true. It doesn't, I think that's the thing, maybe the all or nothing mentality
Mhm.
that I think it's easy to get trapped in is like, if I don't have X amount of time to do the thing, to relax, to take a breather, then I can't do it in 2 minutes. But actually, 2 minutes is very valuable to sit and breathe and ground yourself.
Yeah.
Enormously valuable. And I think we don't always see that when we're in it.
Mm-hmm. If you wouldn't mind talking about your mindset, so I think those of us that are the friend that plans, that makes the reservation, the key component of the friend group is like there has to be someone that is like the captain of the boat that is driving forward. Otherwise, people won't get together. It just kind of falls apart. And so when you're trying to embrace that flow state, how do you make sure the tactical, like people are fed? You know what I mean? There's no one hangry, things like that
Yeah,
still happens.
it's interesting because that did happen on this little friend group thing
Oh,
where it was like one person's doing this thing and then this person's arriving at this time. And I was like, okay, well, what time are you getting here? Because I could come pick you up and then we could go pick up
right.
this friend. And the answer was like early morning. I get there early morning. And I'm like, that's relative. That's not helpful to me. I
No,
need to
as
know.
like 5 a.m. to noon, honestly, for some people. Like that is not.
I was like, that's so not helpful. I need to know what time to pick you up.
Yeah.
So I was like stressing out about like I'm not getting a clear answer and then I don't know what time this person finishes like with their commitment and I'm trying to make these plans. And so my husband was like, they're adults, then they'll figure
Mm,
it out and they'll Uber to
mm,
you and you guys will have to just figure it out. And I was like, right, we're adults. They don't need me to pick them up. Like if they needed me to pick them up, they would have given me a time, right? So it's like, okay, good point, logic, got it. And so it is really interesting going with that flow state is like does put you into a state of uncomfortable or anxiety and then but in the end it all actually works out. Like we really don't have to have the control that we think we do. There was one day where I did get hangry and I was like, hey guys, we got to go eat lunch because I'm dying here.
yep.
And so, and everybody's like, okay, yeah, great, let's go eat lunch. Like it wasn't a big deal,
Awesome.
right?
Yep.
And sometimes we try to make those things a bigger deal than they are. And so we can really go with the flow and try to just, it's a good practice in letting go of the things we think we need to hang on to and control when really you just got to deal with it when it comes up, I think.
Yeah, and it's often the best stories, right? Because sometimes that place you go to lunch that you didn't plan for was like the best meal. They have like the best tacos or this or that. And you're like, actually, like that place is great. So I love that so much. And that's a really beautiful way to be like, how do you find like safety and flow, right?
Yeah. And I
That's
think
the key.
that's
Yeah.
boundaries. Like you do have to set some
Mhm.
boundaries because that was me realizing I needed to speak up and say, hey, I'm hungry. Can we please
Yeah.
go eat lunch? Like I
Yeah.
can't sit there in my hunger and wait for somebody else to finally decide that they're hungry and speak up,
Mhm.
right? So it's still a balance. Like you can go with the flow, but you also have to speak up for yourself if you have a need or a want or an opinion about the state of flow you're in that moment.
Absolutely. And especially those, I think we often know in our friends or in our family, those that are always looking to give to others. And like it's a beautiful lesson for it to be like, well, sometimes other people have more capacity than you to give in that moment. And so letting other people kind of, hey, maybe it's not perfectly planned, but they'll make a reservation. Or they'll be like, I know this place, we can just show up, and it's like beautiful to leave space for that too. So it's not always you shouldering that burden, which it can be after a while.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's comes to understanding the people around you, right? Having like an understanding of the dynamic of who does what and then yeah, and then being able to let go or take charge when it feels necessary. And that's part of the it's interesting. I feel like it's like both being in the flow, but then also having some structure within the flow. I don't know.
We solved it. We solved how to walk the tightrope. That's it.
You're welcome, people.
Yeah. You're welcome. No, I think honestly that is like as I was thinking through and like planning for this episode, I honestly struggled with it. And of course, always excited and so thrilled to like talk with you. But I think that was wise because I was trying to put too much structure into a conversation about flow and creativity. Like, of course, like we are always unlearning these lessons. It'll be a continued thing that we just do to get kind of better and better. But as we think about this topic, any kind of final thoughts that you have on kind of finding the balance for yourself?
I think that's it. I think I would, first of all, highly encourage everybody if you're feeling kind of in that state of, I want to know myself better, or there's some pieces of me that I want to like work through, get some help then. Like ask for
Right.
help. There's so many people like Tristen or like other people out there that can
Yeah.
help give you some tools to go on to make the journey easier, is what I would say. And
Mm.
then just be open and be open. And I think, I mean, I there you go, little ego, but I think we solved it today. I think it's
Yeah.
finding a little bit of structure within the flow, I think is the way to go.
Yeah, and all of that is kind of just expanding that comfort zone or getting out of it a little bit more, right? And just trying to poke at it and being like, this is new and different. It doesn't mean it's bad. It's just new and different. And we're going to try it. And we can always go back to that safe haven, which for me is my little blanket burrito on the couch. You know, it's my favorite place to be, curled up, reality TV blaring, women screaming at a level 10. So comfy, so good. But it's like, you know, like we can go outside and try things new, which is beautiful.
Exactly. I love it.
Awesome. Thank you so much for being here. I know that this is going to be so helpful for so many people. Please, share this. I think this message is so important to really debunk, de-learn the line between how we label ourselves and really just embracing both our creative gifts and talents. Thank you so much for sharing your story too. That was so beautiful to hear and so helpful to really ground how we, especially as like women, are navigating our friendships, our life and balancing who we are and who we want to become. Um, Jessica has an amazing podcast, The Possibility Perspective, where she covers topics like soul purpose, authenticity, and unlocking your intuition. Please check it out. It is incredible. You can find that on the Transformation Network and anywhere you listen to podcasts. As Jessica mentioned, thank you so much. If you'd like to uncover your creative gifts and abilities, and really learn how to navigate your own superpowers. Please book that birth chart reading with me at musingsandmodalities.com. Thank you so much for watching Musings and Modalities with me, your pragmatic shaman bestie. Tune in the second and fourth Thursdays of each month at 3:30 p.m. Pacific, 6:30 p.m. Eastern for more fabulous episodes. Jessica, a thrill and honor. This was beautiful. Thank you so very much.
Thank you so much. It was awesome.
Thank you all for listening. You've been listening to Musings and Modalities with me, Tristen, your pragmatic shaman bestie. For more powerful healing tools, join me every second and fourth Thursday at 3:30 p.m. Pacific on Transformation Talk Radio. I cover a variety of topics to meet you wherever you are at on your spiritual journey. Learn techniques to work with pendulums, past life healing, astrology, and more. Please share the show and subscribe for more guidance from your pragmatic shaman bestie at musingsandmodalities.com.